Hey everybody, Brian Shannon here from alphatrends.net. Today's Friday, June 7th, 2024, and we had, I guess, a mixed market here. Most of the indices were higher. You can see that we did lose some ground in the Russell 2000, which I've been calling a waste of time. The financials lost a little bit of ground, as did energy. That continues to be weak, and of course, because of oil. And saw a little bit of mixed messages in crypto as well. So let's take a look at these charts and make some sense of it. Here's the daily chart on the left, and this is the S&P 500, the SPY, and on the right is the 30-minute time frame. Each one of these bars represents 30 minutes. We've got a rising 20-day moving average right here. We've got a rising 50-day moving average, which is the blue line, and we've got the anchored volume weighted average price from the beginning of the year, which was the beginning of this most recent rally, the test of that. Now, last Friday, we saw, we were coming into last Friday with the market selling off, and then we saw a strong reversal on heavier volume as it got back up above this prior little band of resistance. That resistance, in other words, was tested as support. It failed, and that's exactly what we were looking for. We were looking for it to fail in there, and then the powerful piece of that was as it got back above, when the buyers regained control, it ended up being a shakeout. So we saw a gap higher on Friday. We pulled back. We then got back above the volume weighted average price for the week and maintained above that, as well as above the rising 5-day moving average. The best entry that I had in the S&P 500 this week occurred on Wednesday. I'm sorry, was that Wednesday? Yeah, over here. After it gapped higher, and I spoke about that in the Wednesday video. So after it gapped higher, it pulled back, got back above the volume weighted average price for the day. And that is a strategy that I spoke about, in depth, I think is a chapter in my anchored volume weighted average price book. So heading into next week, where are we? Well, we're still clearly in a primary uptrend. We are one day off an all-time closing high, which was yesterday. And we'll now look for this prior band of resistance to act as the level of support. So let's just call it roughly 530. And it doesn't mean if it breaks below 530, the trend is over. It just means that's the time to think, well, maybe we're going to get a little bit of more time consolidation. And if it consolidates underneath that level, maybe it leads to a more of a price correction. I saw yesterday that somebody had said the SPY volume yesterday was the lowest volume in 13 years or something like that. Well, today's volume was even lighter than that. So that's kind of interesting. And another reason to repeat the phrase, as you know, only price pays. We get paid on price action, not on how much volume changed hands. What's most important is where the volume occurred from. So for instance, from the shakeout low last Friday, this is the volume weighted average price from that level. So while we gapped up on Monday and hit that 5-day moving average and sold off, the buyers emerged from the low of last Friday where that reversal occurred. And we maintained above that all week. So heading into next week, we're a little bit extended here with this move, but the benefit of the doubt continues to go to the buyers, even if we pull back like this. We have a rising 5-day moving average, so the burden of proof, rather, is on the sellers right now. As I just said, I've been calling the Russell 2000 a waste of time. It's just too damn choppy. There's gaps every single day, and it's hard to pick a direction. And even if you find the right direction, you've got to experience those big gaps open. If you're short, you've got to experience this large gap open, this large gap open, that failed rally. So to me, I will continue to say that the Russell's a waste of time. I don't even want to talk about it. Semiconductors, on the other hand, now tonight is when the split is done, and Monday NVDA will be trading at a tenth of this price. It'll be basically a $120 stock. And a lot of times a stock split, especially with a strong rally up to that, and keep in mind where this rally started, right on that pullback to the year-to-date anchored volume weighted average price in April. From that point, we have not quite doubled, but pretty close to it. So, the phrase, buy the rumors, sell the news. I'm not looking for a top. That would be foolish. We still have a rising 10, 20, 50, 100, 200-day moving average. You name it. We're in an uptrend. We're above the rising 5-day moving average. I just want to point out that oftentimes we see a little bit of selling on the news, and just know where your stop is. It doesn't mean sell short. I don't think that's the prudent thing to do, not while it's in an uptrend, but just be aware of that. And that could affect the semiconductor index, which has been the main leader as well. And as we know, this rally also began exactly with a touch of that year-to-date anchored volume weighted average price, which is why I have it on every single chart that I look at. I also always have the week-to-date volume weighted average price, and that is this blue line right here, which we closed above. So even if we start to turn lower, I'm not looking at it as a top. A top occurs when we have the longer term moving averages flattened out and rolling over, and then and that's too far away to really consider. So unless you're trying to form a top with several $billion hedge fund, you've got no business shorting this thing that I can see. Biotechs, we got that break higher, but with a declining 50-day moving average, we knew not to trust it yet. I think, though, that this is going to start to set up, and this is a good thing. So if we can see this thing settle down in here in the next week or so, then we get rid of this data over here and the 50-day moving average begins to rise. Well, then we can look at this weekly time frame and really make a case that if we get above and hold above the anchored volume weighted average price from the beginning of the year, that's that purple line, pink, I guess, and the purple is from the high. If we can get above and hold above those, then I think we could see that the biotechs could become leaders in this market. They've been fighting with this level in here, and the next bigger level up above is probably up near 115 or so. I'm not long in here. I like to see this pullback. This is good. By the middle of next week, I think if it trades the way I think it might, then it will probably be in a position to start to set up for us on the long side. I'm going to talk about crypto before I talk about energy and banks, because I simply don't care about banks and energy. A lot of people do, but Solana, I've been bullish on this. It got back above the anchored volume weighted average price from that recent high. So here is a 4-hour time frame on the right, and this anchor begins basically right here. So this afternoon we saw a sharp pullback, and it pulled back to this rising 50-day moving average and the anchor from the low from where this rally began. I'm thinking this is going to be an important level here. So we saw what appears to me to be a shakeout. This low is going to be important to hold. It seems as though maybe what I thought was going to be an emergence of a nice rally from this level in here. I thought maybe we were going to just continue to move higher and break higher on the daily time frame and go test this. Seems as though that's delayed. I haven't sold. I am still long. And as far as Bitcoin goes, same story. We had a little bit of a pause here. We continue to see that this is our main area of resistance. You might call that a shoulder, a head, and a shoulder. And so, 72.5 is clearly the level that needs to get going, to clear to get going. Meanwhile, I think that in here, a more important level is probably the anchor from that low, which is the anchor from the year-to-date and all-time high as well. So that's at about 66.3. So I think that, I was more bullish at the beginning of the week when the market looked like it was going to be able to move higher, the cryptos that is. But since we failed, I'm a little bit more cautious and think it's going to need some time to settle down and reset up. Energy names, as mentioned, they remain in a downtrend. They're below declining 20 and 50-day moving average. They're trying to hold now on the year-to-date anchored VWAP. They tried to hold the 20. They tried to hold the 50. They tried to hold the anchor from this low. The bottom line is we only know support after the fact. There are levels of interest. And when we touch those levels of interest, like this, like XLE did 4 days ago, we look at the shorter-term time frame and say, is there any evidence the buyers are actually gaining control? And my answer is no, because we have a declining 5-day moving average. We have a declining 20-day moving average. So I have no interest in energy names. And then I guess financials. Did I talk about the financials? They are grinding higher here a little bit. If you're long in here, I'd say set your stop underneath this area somewhere.